Hey guys, Michael Rashawn, welcome back. We are in episode 5, week 5 here of this Ziglar Wheel of Life series. And I'm excited to get into the family spoke this week. Now, family is in the title, obviously, but the reality is that most of this information applies to everyone, whether or not you have kids, whether or not you still live at home, whatever your situation may be. It could easily be called the relationship spoke. Because at the end of the day, family can look very different for different people. So look at it in the reference of relationships, whether it's relationships with your kids, relationships with your spouse, your siblings, maybe relationships with your close friends or your coworkers, whoever it may be. So getting into it here, the why behind the family spoke being formed. Obviously, this isn't by accident, and we have covered 3 other spokes prior to getting to this. So why is this the fourth? The family spoke in a word. Summing it up, and if you take nothing else away, remember this one word. The 10 components of the family spoke. So just like all the other spokes that we have covered and will cover, the family spoke as well has 10 components. And then 2 key actions you can take this week in relation specifically to the family spoke. So, without further ado, let's get into the content here. Again, this is Ziglar Wheel of Life. Just in case your first time joining us, we are in the family spoke. We have covered the physical, the mental, and the spiritual previously. And these are the 10 components that we will be getting into. We'll be spending a little bit more time in these particular 10 things than we have in previous videos. But getting into it here, the why behind the family spoke being four. If you remember on my last video, I mentioned that the mental, spiritual, and physical, collectively, those 3 spokes, make up or have the biggest impact on how we see ourselves. So our self-image. Now, why does that matter? Why that matters is that what is caught is more powerful than what is taught. This is true especially of kids, but again, like I said, it can apply to anybody. If you're in a leadership position, what you're saying is not nearly as important as how you're treating people and what you're communicating through nonverbal actions. So the question here is, do your actions line up with what you're telling your loved ones you believe? So do you tell your kids to speak kindly to each other and then go around and yell at them or get very frustrated with your spouse when they do something you don't like? Do you tell them to be wise with money, that you need to save money, that money doesn't grow on trees, all those things? But are you living off credit cards or putting things on credit cards that aren't necessities? The average household right now in America has $7,000 of unnecessary credit card debt. I get there are situations where you have no choice but to put it on a credit card. I'm not referring to that. This is you want something at the store, you didn't plan ahead for it, and you're going to put it on a credit card because you want that instant gratification. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. And I have been guilty of this myself. In our family, we currently have zero credit card debt, but there were many years prior that we did have credit card debt. So we would tell our kids, hey, you need to be wise with money. But on the flip side, we were putting things on credit cards a lot of times just because we wanted them. Maybe we called them necessity, maybe we didn't, but it wasn't like we were putting our food on a credit card. So how necessary is it really at the end of the day? So again, the point there is that you want your actions to line up with what you're saying because your actions are ultimately what is going to have the biggest impact on your kids and those around you. So the family spoke in a word. What is that word? That word is legacy. Now, the official definition of legacy is something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. Now, to put that quite simply, legacy is a transfer of habits, and what you teach your kids, in my opinion, is arguably the most important legacy that you can leave. And some people say, well, I'm not concerned about my legacy. I don't want to leave a legacy. And the reality is that you're going to leave a legacy. Whether or not you leave a legacy is not the question. The question that you have to answer is what kind of legacy do you want to leave? One that's intentional, because leaving a legacy takes intentionality, and intentionality takes time. So it's not something that's just going to happen. If you leave it up to chance and you just let it happen, the odds are you're going to leave a legacy you will not be proud of. But the good news is that there is a roadmap and there is a guide for leaving a legacy that you can be proud of. Now that gets us into the actual 10 components of the spoke. So I want you to look at these 10 things through the lens of what is caught versus what is taught. So again, we're thinking about actions. What are the actions we're taking, or how are we modeling these specific things for our children? So each one of these implies some action. So are you listening? How is your listening skills? When your kids are talking, do they have your focus, or are you on your phone and distracted? Are you a good role model? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Do you have ethics? Do you live by a higher standard? Are you being a good role model for those around you? Principled but flexible, and that kind of three and four kind of tie together. Forgiving attitude. So do you have principles, but are you able to be flexible and have grace when the opportunity or the circumstances require it? Build self esteem of others. Express love and respect. Meals together. Do you block out time, maybe whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner? For us personally, we're usually together for some form of breakfast, but our more formal meals is typically dinner. We try to sit down and actually have family dinner 3 times a week. And we have 3 little kids, so that can be a little bit challenging. But you got to do what works for you and your family, but it's also about being intentional and making that effort. Family relationships. So this would go beyond. This is going to be your extended family, your in-laws, your siblings. Do you maintain those relationships, and what do your kids see? Dealing with the relationships, and then time together. Because again, so kids spell love Time. Now, regardless of what you're telling your kids with your words, if you're not making time for them and you're not spending time with them and making that a priority, then there's a very real chance that they're not going to care about anything else you have to say, because they're not going to feel loved. So, final thoughts, guys. Again, the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good ones. So, in keeping with our theme of making small changes, again, we're not looking for perfection, but this particular spoke presents a great opportunity to get the family involved. Whether you have big kids, little kids, maybe they're not even at home, you can still be intentional with this. If you have younger kids, it creates a great opportunity to start developing some habits and modeling what those habits look like. Now, there's 2 things I want you to consider, 2 things I want you to work on this week. First off, on the more personal aspect. So, you personally, what is one area off that list of 10 things that you can improve on or you can work on this week? Now, if you took the assessment, then you have already ranked yourself from 1 to 10 on each of those. So, find one of the lowest 1 or 2 and pick one that you're going to focus on. We just want one small change that you're going to be consistent with throughout this week. And again, the goal of this is to build on the previous weeks and the changes that we have been making throughout this process. So the goal isn't to throw those out because those are gone, but we want to continue adding to them. And these small changes collectively will have huge impacts if you're consistent with them. So that's a person. So for the family, this is where you can get the family involved, regardless of the age of your kids. So what you're going to do is come up with a list. And if you need some help, you need some kind of references there, go back to my video on the spiritual spoke and use the 68 qualities of success. Those are all great qualities. And you can pick 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you want. Maybe if you have 5 people in your family, let each person pick one. But the point is that you're being proactive and you're being intentional. So I'll use some of the words that we use at our house. Our family, when people are talking about us and we're not there, I want them to describe us as honest, dependable, and kind. Those are 3 of the things that I want to be known for as a family. So when somebody's talking about my kids, I want them to be described as honest kids. I want them to be described as dependable. They're going to do what they say they're going to do. And kind, they treat others well and they love others well. So those are just 3 of the ones that we use. And you can create your own list. And the cool thing about this is you can get the kids involved, you can write it out, and now you have a physical manifestation of the intentional legacy that you're trying to leave with your kids. And that is very, very cool. So, guys, that is all I got. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope it was helpful. And I get it, guys. Family can be messy, but intentionality will go a long, long way towards remedying much of that. Now, when I say family, again, whether that's actual family and blood relatives, or that's just people that you're close to that are like your family, again, think of this in the context of relationships. Now, being intentional with those relationships and being intentional with the habits that you pass on to the people around you and the people that you are in charge of, whether that's your family, coworkers, subordinates, whatever the case may be. Be intentional with the legacy that you leave. It does take work, but in the end, you are going to leave a legacy. So you might as well leave one that you can be proud of. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this content. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, come back next week as we get into the back half of the course here. And as I always do, I want to offer those strategy sessions. I do have a limited number of those, and my calendar is filling up pretty quickly. So we're currently a couple weeks out right now. But if you're interested, you need to take the next step, because nothing changes until something changes. And there is no better time than right now to start. Again, this is a complimentary 1 hour strategy session, discovery call, where we just get to know each other a little bit more, take a deep dive into what makes you tick and what you want out of life. And then I will help you build a roadmap to get you there. And anyway, guys, tell your friends, share this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back next week for more.